Who do you want to be? How do you get there? Let's talk to the people in those positions on your journey to becoming you. Welcome to the first episode of Becoming You. My name is Earl Stokes, and I have here with me Ralph. Okay, it goes two ways. Some people say Gilles, some people say Gilles, but I believe it's Gilles.
Correct.
All right, see,
well done.
I'm on track. It's Gilles, Ralph Gilles, the head of design for Stellantis. And before we get started, I was just telling him that this is a meaningful episode for me because this is a guy that I looked up to growing up. And of course, when the 300 hit the streets, it was cultural thing, you know, and that's when I really started paying attention to you, and your backstory is pretty much anybody can accomplish anything. That's what this is to me. And as of right now, even though you're still in doing the job, you're a living legend. I mean, I'm sure you know that. I hope you know that you're a living legend in the car community. You know, you made being an automotive designer trendy. I don't know how you did it, but you know, it's trendy. It's like a rapper, an actor. Oh, you got an automotive designer. So, you know, when you start showing up in blue jeans and all that stuff on TV when everybody else wore $2,000 suits and stuff. But we're here to talk about his life and how it got to this point. Once again, everything I just said about myself, a person like this is here for guidance for the rest of us. He actually broke through the mold, you know, that we all face, even people of color. So before we get started, I know automotive it's not just a career for you. What are some of your favorite things to do with vehicles outside of work, your pastime?
Well, for me, I've loved cars since I was 7 years old. Kind of noticed them, the aesthetic piece. But what I found out very quickly is the social piece. Even at school, when I was in grade school and high school, just liking cars was a great connector. Okay. No one cared what you looked like or what your background was if you had something in common. I grew up with a lot of TV shows were centered around cars. So it was the car culture.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Magnum PI, Dukes of Hazzard, you know, kind of all that fun stuff and movies left and right. So it kind of was the start of this love affair. And then design eventually started to matter to me. I started noticing why I have an emotional feeling about one car and an indifferent feeling about another. So I started to think about all those dynamics.
Nice. Man, it's like I said, your backstory, it's so many things were me, and if I had something like this back when I actually stopped going to college and saw your story, I probably would have went back, but life took over. So let's start from the beginning. I know you were born in New York and raised in Montreal. Right. If I can ask, what caused that transition?
Well, my parents were immigrants from Haiti, so they were just finding their legs in New York. New York was a pretty hectic town, and they witnessed a mugging. My mom literally wanted to try us, to raise us in a safer environment. And a lot of Haitians, being that French is the main language, Quebec was a natural thing. Montreal was, so they could find work rather easily at the time. So he said, what the hell? It's cold up there, but cold in Detroit even.
I was about to say that. I know that for sure.
Yeah, but we grew up not knowing any better. So I was only 10 months old. My brother was a little older than me, so they picked up and rooted it. And it brought a whole different perspective. Montreal is a much smaller city than New York, but not as diverse, right? So right away, I probably, even as a young kid, started feeling that I was a little different in some respects. So I was forced to adapt and kind of learn to manage myself around very, very different types of people.
That's interesting. So did you learn? Do you speak French?
Yes, I do.
Fluently?
Yeah, yes.
Man, I gotta catch up, man. I'm sure my wife will love me even more after that one. So, all right. So let's start from the beginning. Like I said, this is about your life. We're trying to figure out what chemicals and everything got intertwined to make you this big shot designer. And so going to grade school. Was there any automotive, ideas in your head at that point?
Not yet. I was into art in general. I used to like to draw. One of my things, maybe bad things, during math class, whatever class it was, I was in the margins, always sketching something.
Man.
I joke I grew up in the ugly 70s. I mean, the cars were not so good. I mean, late 60s, maybe very, very early 70s, but there was a period where cars were kind of lost for a while. During the OPEC era, the gas crisis, cars were going from big V8s, front-wheel drive, and economy cars, exactly. And Japanese cars were starting to become imported for, as entry-level cars. So it was just a really bizarre time. And I noticed that as a kid. I was like, whoa. When I read magazines, I see Porsches and Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and when I look on the road, I see Pintos and you know.
Okay, no, I see that.
And Datsuns and things. Like,
You're
what
right.
is this all about?
Actually, if you watch movies from that time, you see the same thing in traffic.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay, I
yeah.
can see that. Nice. What kind of kid were you? Sports or
No,
hobbies?
oh man, I was a nerd. I admired kids that could play sports. I was not big on sports. I spent all my time sketching. I mean, I couldn't play basketball; I was too short. Racket sports, I had no coordination. Running, I was pretty good at. I could do track.
All right,
I loved
all
to do track. And my high school was not big; didn't have any like football or anything like that. So
Okay, and you went to high school in Montreal.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, okay, we'll leave elementary, and it's pretty much the same story for middle school.
Yeah.
Nerd, no sports, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, what did you do? What did you do in the summer?
I drew a
That's
lot.
it?
I really enjoyed drawing. I would go around on my bike and go everywhere. You know, just pick up things, hang out with my buddies. Like to build model rockets. I got into that. Lost a lot of rockets into trees and stuff. So I got a bit of a scientist side of me. I love making things, and I made a lot of plastic model cars. I mean, that was one of my
Really?
favorite because it was getting cars.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could build a Porsche 930. I could build a Lamborghini. I could build a 68 Charger. All Rebel. I think Rebel was the toys I always bought.
Okay.
And I had tons of them.
Nice.
And then I put firecrackers in them and blew them up. So it was good.
There's the guy that's
Just
coming
like
out
it-
right there. There's the boy. Yeah.
Exactly. So that kind of stuff. But
Okay.
always around cars.
My mother would have stories for that. They used to buy me model cars all
Yeah.
the time, and I hated the way the remote control cars looked. So I would take it apart to dice cars,
Make it cooler.
My mother's somewhat of an electrician, and I would definitely merge them. It needs the rim from the model car, and I'll tear it up as soon as I get outside. So
Yeah.
no, I love that right there. So coming into high school, I know you were really starting to notice how gifted you were in drawing art.
Yeah.
I should say. Were you homing in on design yet?
Started to, yeah. So what happened, I was just good at art. Everything that had to do with art, I was naturally good at. I saw that way. I thought as a creative.
I was about to say just creativity.
I even got into the yearbook. So I found out that those skills transferred in the layout. I was part of the yearbook committee for 3 years, and we did all the. Back then, the yearbook was like the holy grail.
Yeah.
All the girls wanted to get to know me so they can get a picture in the yearbook. So
See, take note. Things we didn't think about. I didn't think about that either.
So I didn't exactly. So that part, the artistic side.
Yeah.
And then what happened is there was an exchange student from of all places, Japan, that came in, and he could really draw. And back then, I was the best sketcher in all of high school.
Okay.
And this kid comes along, and he's on another level. I had never had any competition, so I thought I was pretty good. And then I saw his work, and he was like next level, and it motivated me to double down on my craft. So I went home after school, after doing my homework. I had to go in the basement and just start sketching and practicing. And I got better and better, and eventually I showed it to him, and the teacher saw us comparing, and they actually had an art opening at our high school. They put our work in the glass cabinets.
Okay.
So everybody could see, and everybody was fighting about who's the better artist,
I love
and
it.
it turns out we just love the fact that we could share a common passion.
Yeah. I was the same way. Mine was always in the glass cases. I was the kid in high school. I didn't have to do any of the art projects because my teacher knew. But my first challenge with art is when my teacher had me enter the 2006 design competition.
Oh.
I was a junior in high school. That was a lot of pressure for me. I don't know whatever happened with that. For the record, I designed a Bentley truck that was full-size SUV.
You're ahead of yourself.
Right.
They did do one finally.
Exactly. Not on the scale of mine. Mine was a big suburban size.
Okay.
But, with Detroit in the background and everything. But man, the creativity here, I love it. So, in high school, I'm gonna ask you the same questions. What were your hobbies? What did you do as a
Yeah, like I said, the yearbook club. I did a little writing and stuff like that. The drama club, I enjoyed that. But really, the yearbook club was my biggest thing. And
Okay.
you're gonna laugh again, being a nerd. I was on the badminton team, so we'd have travel badminton of all things. All the cool guys are playing cool sports, and
I could say in high school I wouldn't have known what that was. You said, what is that? A sport? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
Cool.
And we didn't. The one thing I was mad at, our high school had phased out shop class. Because had that been, I would have taken it because I love to tinker. To this day, I love wrenching and stuff. So.
I did that. I did my last 2 years of high school. I went to Oakland Technical campus half the day. I got certified in body collision because when I became a car designer, I wanted to know every aspect of it. Like I'm gonna design it. I went to college for animation. I'm gonna animate it and all that stuff. I don't need the team. They just fix everything. But as you get older, you realize team is everything, of course. So now going in now before we leave high school, cool cars. What was your first car?
My first car, you won't even know what it is. Maybe you'll find it on the internet. It's Austin Marina. a British car that is
I'll Google it and put
ugly
the
as
picture
can
up.
be. An uncle had it rotting away in his backyard, and
Yeah.
he literally said, if you need a car, why don't you try to get that thing running? And I did. I worked on it, and then my mom, out of sheer mercy, had it painted real quick for me. Kind of a Mako job, you know.
All right, so if you have a picture that you have to send it to me, okay? If you do,
I
please.
think it rusted in place. It was a terrible car.
But you had a car.
Yeah, and I had no heat for 2 winters, and I couldn't feel my fingertips.
In Montreal.
Yeah, exactly.
And we complain about Michigan.
We'd be scraping the windows on the inside, not the outside. Just so you could see outside.
The things you don't think about, like I said,
It motivated me to work harder. It's like, okay, I don't want this to be my reality the rest of my life.
I can't talk crap to anybody else about being so cold in Michigan. That's an interesting inside the car. Wow.
Yeah.
So okay, now here we are in high school.
Yeah.
Was there anybody at this point that motivated you or you were interested in?
Well, it was my
Not just automotive, just pure.
no, my aunt, because in the summers I would go to New York, and this might be out there. Yeah, I know it's out there. But I spent summers at her place, and I would sketch all the time. I worked at a local grocery store just to make the summer go by. And again, when I got home, I was sketching, and she noticed my obsession with drawing and sketching and trying to design the future of cars. And she motivated me and said, do you really love this? And I always thought it was a hobby. I didn't think of it as a career. I really thought, hey, it's something fun to do. It's a hobby. And she goes, why don't you do this for a living? Don't they have people that design? And I didn't think that cars came from designers. I thought cars came from engineers.
Yeah, she said this to you then. Why don't you do it for a living?
When I was 15 years old, and she literally made me write a letter to Chrysler, Iacocca, the head of Chrysler. And back then, the only reason she picked him was because he was on TV all the time making car commercials. He's one of the few CEOs that'd be like, you can find a better car, buy it.
That was an aggressive commercial. I don't know if you've ever seen
the famous commercials.
My wife over there, but
Yeah.
very, very aggressive.
So it got us to, so she said, hey, let's write a letter to that guy. And she looked him up and found, and we did, and they wrote back. It took about a month, and they wrote back and said, hey, we see some skill here.
Yeah.
They recommended some design schools to me. Again, at that time, there was no internet. You have to understand, right? So I don't know what they were talking about.
Slightly before my time.
Yeah,
Slightly.
one in Detroit. There was a school in New York. There was a school in California, and that seemed so far away from me from when I lived in Montreal.
Just the U.S. period was like a cringe
at the time.
Yeah. Okay, nice. And so here, was there anyone you admired at this point?
As a designer,
As a
yes,
designer.
Giugiaro.
Architect.
I really loved his work because I was a big fan of the Lotus Esprits back then, and the
Still
Scirocco- the Golf GTIs
Yeah.
and the Scirocco's. And I didn't know, and I did some research. I found this name kept coming up. All the cars I liked were by Giugiaro, who's still alive to this day, great designer. And he had his own firm, worked with Pininfarina, and they would contract design the way it works in Italy. You have design houses and the different OEMs come and ask them to do work for them. So he was a very prolific designer. Then I found out about Gandini and all these other amazing designers, typically Italians. Those were the famous ones that made the beautiful cars that I loved. Then I learned later about Virgil Exner from Chrysler and Harley Earl from GM, and started to really understand it. Wow, there are these people behind these cars. They don't just happen.
Okay.
It's very inspiring for me.
It's Harley Earl. Does he have a silver? It's a silver Corvette. I believe that's on display somewhere.
Oh, he had several. He would make concept cars that he would drive home.
Yeah,
he was famous.
When I see his name on a car, I actually make sure I take a picture next to it. Yeah, this is my car.
So back then, the big shot designers would create their dream cars and actually make them, drive them.
That's cool, man.
It's really cool.
And that was the idea you had right there.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I wanted to be in that industry. I never thought any day I would be head of design of anything. I just thought I would get to doodle for a living.
Yeah, I mean, you have a great story. It seemed like it happened so fast for you.
Yeah, at the time, yeah. And we'll talk about it, but yeah.
Oh yeah, all right, yeah. Let me stay on track here. I'm losing you guys. So, all right, so we're still in the high school stage. We already talked about those few things. Now let's jump to senior year. What were your ideas? What were you gonna do? Graduation.
Well, by then I had this in the back of my mind. Now, the idea of being a designer and going to school in Detroit still was out there. Affordability-wise, we couldn't afford it as a family yet. So I actually decided to go to college in Montreal, Canada. I was going to pick sciences and try to become an engineer of some kind. But I realized I wasn't doing so good at it. I didn't like it. I didn't like calculus and trigonometry at that level. I was okay in high school, but college was a different thing. And I lost interest and dropped out. I actually dropped out of high school. And you have to understand, I have two Caribbean parents that are hardcore education first. My brother's in med school 2 years ahead of me.
They did all this work to get you guys over.
Exactly. And I'm the black sheep of the family, dropping out of college, going to the basement and playing with my video games and doodling cars, and they thought the doodling cars thing was just a silly hobby. They didn't really see any future in it.
So your auntie and I know your brother were pretty much the only believers.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I was lost. I have to be honest, and I know a lot of kids go through that time in their lives. I was truly lost. I didn't know what I was going to do. In fact, I kept looking for work. I loved my job at the hardware store. I used to unload semi-trucks and do that. And hey, I'll be a manager someday. I actually did that. Well, within 3 months, I got promoted to a manager already. And I saw, hey, so I have a career here. Let's go. Let's get on, make some money and buy some car. You know?
Yeah, 18, 19.
Yeah. So and my brother came home from college, and he was, again, my biggest fan was my brother. And he's in med school. He was a real studious guy, big. He could play any sport he wanted to. 6'4", muscle-bound guy, but he was really fascinated with education. And he said, why don't you that doodling thing you like to do? Why don't you do for a living? I'm like, huh? Yeah.
That was it. The doodling thing you like to do.
Just like that. Yeah.
Wow.
He wasn't artistic himself, so he didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're the only artistic person in your
my immediate family. Yeah, we have some cousins that do painting.
Okay. Any competitions on the holidays or?
Nah.
Pull out a napkin and
just fun. Yeah, okay. Of course. We mess around. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so here, was there a point, now you can give me an age right here, was there a point where the hardware store sitting in the basement just wasn't enough?
It was starting to be. Yeah, I would say, so we're talking about April now, so I dropped out pretty much right away in October of, back then, I think 1987 I had dropped out.
Okay.
But I worked for a solid 4 or 5 months at the hardware store, and already I was starting to feel like, I don't know, I could do this the rest of my life, but is it really, I need something. I used to joke that I've been joking that I created the gap year before it was a thing. Now it's fashionable to do these gap years.
That's standard nowadays.
Yeah. But I need it, and I do say to my daughters and whoever I talk to, it's okay. I think people need time to figure out what they want to do, and I needed that time. Now today you have the internet, obviously you can kind of figure it out, but I've had a hollow feeling in my stomach that this wasn't my destiny. To be able to, to work at the hardware store. So I needed that nudge, I needed that support from my brother to finally to do it.
Gotcha. CCS, I guess that's the next topic now, since sitting at home drawing. Now, from what I know, your brother, what you just said, your brother came home.
Yeah.
And take off from there. He came home, you were down.
Yeah, he was on spring break. Now, he could have gone with his buddies to Florida and had fun, but he decided to go home, and he wanted to engage me. He was on a mission to figure out how he could help. So my parents were telling him, "Hey, your brother's lost. He's, my parents hadn't given up on me necessarily, but they just didn't know what to tell me,
right?
Because I didn't want to do engineering. So he said, "Hey, let's go find that letter." And I had kind of put the letter aside that I got from Chrysler. So we looked at it, and it had those schools, and we actually called up the school in Detroit, CCS, which I ended up going to. And they called back and said, well, we'll fax you over. So my mom used to work at a place I work, and she brought it home and said, okay, this is what you need. You need 10 pieces of art that demonstrate your abilities. So I only had maybe 1 or 2 pieces that I would be proud enough to send to them, so I had to make new stuff, right? So my brother goes, well, deadline's this Friday, and it's Tuesday. What are we going to do, right? So we started, first time in my life I ever had coffee. I'm like, what is this stuff? We're going to make coffee, and he literally brewed me coffee. He went to the store with me, got supplies and paper, and we just started sketching. And he played music for me and just kept pumping me up. Every time I wanted to fall asleep, he goes, "Get up, boy! Get back on the drawing board."
Military at that point.
Oh yeah, he was quite big guy too. So yeah, we just had fun. Actually, we bonded over it, and I did those 10 pieces. We rolled them up and put them in a tube, overnighted them, and I got an answer back in a couple of weeks. And that changed my life. The moment I remember opening a letter, shaking, going, it was not that thick of a letter. I'm like, I think it's a rejection letter, and it turned out to be an acceptance.
So you're cool because you just automatically, that's a rejection.
Yeah, but then I saw the price. I'm like, what? It was like $7,900 US a year. At the time, that was like mind-blowing amount of money.
Yeah.
Because education was free in Canada. So here I had another decision to make. I stay in Canada and get free college, or do I go to the US and I don't know, take the piggy bank or whatever I got to do. So it was a big deal at the time. And we were very lower middle class family. We didn't have that much because they were putting everything into my brother's career. So I asked for every piece of overtime I could find at the hardware store. Started banking every penny, and I actually saved up enough to pay for my first year of college.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So you pretty much did overtime at that store until it was time to go.
Yes,
or
exactly.
Come to America. I
worked right to the end, and I put in my resignation, and I got in the car, and my parents drove me to school.
So you need your own Coming to America movie. That's what it's time for. Coming to America documentary. So, okay, cool. Now, and even with all that being said, how much older is your brother, by the way?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. You said $7,000, and I went off to college in 2007, and man, it was a lot higher than that.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to go straight to CCS.
Yeah.
And I did half my submission, my 5 drawings, and it's like, you know what, I'm not gonna make it. So the goal was to go off for 2 years and come back home, but like I said, life. So it's great that you had that one person that, you know, had your brother not did that, you know, where would you be? You know?
I don't know.
Don't get me wrong, your parents cared, but like you said, they didn't know how to get to you.
I think I would have been doing something else in Canada, most likely.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm the oldest of my siblings, so I wish I had a big brother. So that's cool. Okay. So now we're going off to CCS. Are you fully mentally invested in automotive design at this point, or are you just going with the wind?
CCS was a reality check. So what I mean by that is, it's one thing to get to a school like that, just be accepted, but it doesn't mean you're going to be a car designer. So you're now thrown into a pool of 160 kids that all want to be car designers. And
Probably
all
5
want
of
to
you
be
come out.
Exactly. At the time they said that to us. Well, of all of you here, only maybe 15 of you will graduate as car designers. And that, I'm like, whoa. And I use this analogy all the time. It's like, you know, if you're a fan of Marvel or X-Men, imagine going to the X-Men mansion and seeing, you know, all these people that have superpowers, right? So you also all of a sudden feel, I'm not that kid in high school who's the best anymore. I'm just another typical wannabe designer. So it really made me step up my game. But that's actually the best thing about going to schools like CCS and Art Center and those kind of colleges is you're now competing with the best of the best, or at least you're in the big leagues, but you have to earn your way beyond that. And what happens in those schools is some end up staying in automotive design, some become product designers, some become fashion designers or sci-fi movie designers. So there's all these different fields. I didn't even know about those fields. And I learned that, wow, and I started to think, should I be a product designer instead? But again, the love affair with cars just kept pushing me towards
Now, speaking of all those different fields, were like fashion design, was that pretty a new thing when you got to CCS?
Yeah, I didn't know. I knew it was out there, but I didn't know the school did that. It's even bigger now. Right now, CCS is huge.
Yeah.
You have interior design. You got what do you call it? Like set. You know, the people that design sets, theaters, and all that stuff.
Okay.
Exhibit design. There's all kinds of types of
I
design.
go to CCS.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that much variety now.
Yeah, though it's incredible. The school is really, even from when I've gone there, there's so many more things they offer. It's fantastic.
You're part of a board there, right?
Yeah, I'm on the board.
So you're there pretty much for every graduation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that must be nice to keep going back to your roots.
Yeah.
And does it ever? I mean, do you ever just sit back and get humbled? Like I was that guy in that seat that wasn't sure if I was going to
All
make
the
it.
time.
Yeah.
All the time. Every time I sit like this and retell it, or I meet someone who's on the other end of it, dreaming, or even a memory, I sit there going, wow, my life could be very different. So it makes me very grateful. To this day, I never take it for granted. I don't, you know, I'm not very, I don't walk around like a peacock, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's millions of people that wanted those same shoes, and you happen to accomplish it. So I can imagine that's almost bring a tear to your eye if nobody's watching. So, okay, so here we are. You're in CCS. By the way, before we move on, do you have a favorite piece in your 10 design collection that you sent off?
Yeah, somewhere in there. I think it's a car I did. Actually named it. I used to dream about my own car company. The name of the car was my last name. You know, the Gilles. It was so funny.
First, it's cool.
This car is doing a drift, and I look at it now, and it's actually a lot of work, but it's a terribly proportioned car. You know?
Do you still have it?
Yeah, I have it rolled up in my stuff somewhere.
Why don't I see that on the internet?
I don't know, because I'm embarrassed. One day I'll post actually, it's in the Netflix episode. Netflix did a special called Abstract Design.
Oh, watch that. That was a mini
Yeah,
movie.
they actually flashed that piece real quickly because they forced me to give them some of my old stuff.
You were unrolling.
Yes.
I gotta go back to that scene. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Ah, man, I'm gonna post it as soon as I see it. Okay, cool. So, now you're invested into CCS. Everybody's rooting for you. The family. How's Dad feeling at this point?
He was coming around. He still wasn't convinced. He said, he thought, because he briefly went to school and walked around and saw a lot of artists, a lot of tattooed kids laying on the grass smoking weed, so he wasn't exactly sure. It didn't look anything like my brother's school. This is an art school now, so you got people, look a little different.
That's funny. Dad, you're just very stressed.
But he said, all right, we'll give it a shot, but they were supportive ultimately.
Yeah, okay, cool. And dang, I know I keep pausing, but another side note. I heard a little bit of a story that your brother took a trip to CCS before you.
You're right, he did, because he went to school in Cleveland, which was only a 3-hour drive. So he drove up and just helped himself in. At the time, security was quite lax, so he just knocked on some doors and he found a senior designer, Craig Metros, who I'm actually friends with now.
Okay.
And he went in with his disposable camera and started snapping pictures of Craig's room and his stuff. And it's kind of invasive, but my brother's a very convincing guy.
So I see. Okay.
So he had them developed right away, sent them to me. He goes, "This is what it looks like," and it looks so cool. I couldn't believe. Look at Craig's work, and the clay models. He had like these crazy cool sketches all around his dorm. And I was like, sold. That's it. That's all I needed to say. I couldn't wait.
Okay.
And we had already applied and got accepted, but now was a waiting period between application and moving in late August.
Like you said, there was no internet at the time, so you seeing those pictures, you never seen nothing.
That's the only connection I had was I couldn't wait. My brother called me and said, "I just went to school. You're gonna love it."
No kidding, man.
So he's kind of building me up. You know what I mean?
Brother of the year, right there. Yeah. Decade of the life, I guess you should say. He needs an award too. Yeah. He's gonna be in your Coming to America documentary. So, all right, now that we're at this point, you're coming up on graduation. Let's say I assume you did 4 years.
Yes.
There. Now your junior year. Now you're starting to get approached. I'm sure you're getting approached at this point by.
Yeah, we had some internship. Yeah, we had some good interns.
What did you do an intern at?
I actually went to did one in France. Actually, did an internship in a small company that's a coach builder in France.
Okay.
Called Gilles. Yeah, it was awesome. I just wanted to go to Europe and do something different.
Man.
And then
Wow. Yeah, documentary, seriously. We did a full-blown movie. Okay, and now I know hopefully we'll have Mark on next. I know you were in school with him, Trosto. Were you guys ever, competition?
Of course. I'm
sure everybody was.
Yeah, we laugh about it now. And our generation was very competitive. I mean, we didn't help each other out. We kind of sketched in our apartment and kind of put the word on the wall the last possible minute so no one could see what you did. Nowadays, the young kids share everything. They're comparing notes. They're helping each other out, lending each other tools. I'm like, what?
Yeah. See, I'm born in.
Where's
born
the
in
fight?
89.
Where's the fight? No.
I'm stuck in the middle of you and this new thing.
I like the new way better.
I don't know. Like you said, the competition is it's not as edgy now anymore. So
it was really tough. But Mark and I got along, But again, we didn't really give each other tips and tricks. It was more just respect. That's it. So.
I like Mark. He's a cool guy.
Yeah.
I've had a chance to talk to him a few times. So it's funny. I run into him, about a good 4 times, but I never run into you. I guess because you're traveling so much. I guess. Okay. So graduation's coming. Of course, you went to Chrysler. Was it called Chrysler when you?
Yeah,
okay. What I know, but for the viewers. What was the big decision? What was the big reason you chose Chrysler?
Yeah, I had an offer from Ford, which was equally as interesting, and an offer from Honda of Ohio. They had a studio there doing other things, not cars, but they did all kinds of stuff in Ohio. I chose Chrysler because of that letter, to be honest with you. The letter was interesting to me. I also, during my time at CCS, the Viper came out at the Detroit Motor Show. So we'd go to Detroit Motor Show every January like everybody else at the time.
Right.
And I thought Chrysler was onto something. Now their street cars weren't that great. They were doing K cars, and, but they kept showing these really tantalizing auto show cars like the Portofino and the Viper and a bunch of other. So they were kind of showing where they want to be, and I thought that was really exciting.
Okay.
So it was the place to be. They had built that brand new tech center. It wasn't even occupied yet.
Okay.
So
in Auburn Hills?
Correct. And when I was when they were trying to get me to go there, they actually had a road trip. So Trussell and I were both on the same look-see trip. So they showed us the new building. I mean, the paint was still drying. They showed the brand new studios. It was like, this place is gonna be cool,
No kidding. That's my office. No, that's my office.
It was just, we were just in awe. I mean, we'd never seen a building that big, or the fact that it was all new, and thought that Chrysler was investing in the future.
But this is your first time stepping on a big corporation.
Yes, of any kind, let alone a car company. So it was all too good to be true. It was a dream come true.
Man, I mean, I guess since you are where you are in life right now, I could not see Ford for you, man. Now we're stepping into Chrysler. Did you and Mark go at the same time?
Yeah, he hired in literally 2 days before me, more or less the same. Wow. We were same class, graduating class.
Okay. Any other students from your school?
Not that year. The year behind me, Brandon Ferrote, who's still there, Bob Boniface, who went to GM, who was at Chrysler but then went to GM. Brian Nesbitt went to Art Center. So there was a lot of great designers that I'm friends with. And and we've kept in touch over the years.
Nice. Okay, so at this point, I mean, I'm trying not to ask you all the questions that's on the internet, or make it more simple for our viewers. What was the first thing that you actually worked on that went into production?
Well, we were working on the Cab Forward series of vehicles, the Intrepid, the Concorde, the LHS. They were all coming out. So the world didn't see them because we saw them inside of it. It wasn't out yet. And I was actually, my thesis project was in interior, because I saw that nobody was doing interior. So I did a full-size interior as my thesis, just to change it up, do something different. I wanted to get noticed by the OEMs. And they actually put me in the interior studio, and I loved it because I had a love affair with product design as well, in terms of component design. So I worked on the Concorde, and later on the Jeep Liberty production, and before that the Jeepster concept car was my first big break.
Oh, okay, now I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I worked on that, and then the Dodge Intrepid interior, the concept ESX 1, I believe it was. So with Bob Boniface did the exterior, I did the interior. So I had a lot of back-to-back projects that were all around the Cab Forward family of vehicles.
Yeah. Now being all this said, do you think you came into Chrysler at the perfect time? I mean, they were in a big transition. A lot of older guys were still in charge, and it seemed like when you guys came in, you were the first new faces in a while.
And if you look at the names of designers that came in 92, 93, all of them went on to do great things. Not all of them stayed there. I'm one of the few that actually stayed there the whole time, and still am there. But we had a blast. It was very competitive. The company was on a roll. I mean, Chrysler from 92 to 98 was unstoppable.
I mean, I can imagine at that point it's you young guys that's really at it. The older guys,
No, we didn't see it that way.
No?
My mentor was Tom Gale, who was one of those older guys, but he was incredibly a fantastic coach, great leader, learned a lot from him. What he had was his observation skills. We learned so much about how to look at a car. Proportions first, not details. Stand back, look at the car far away. Jack Crane, some amazing designers that would teach us, and that was the culture at Chrysler. They weren't, oh, you're the underlings, you're the young kids. It was more like, hey, we're a work family. We're going to do this together. We're going to show you how to do it. So it was extremely great place to come of age as a designer.
If it wouldn't have came from your mom, I wouldn't believe that at all. Like, no way. All those old school guys in there, there's no way. So cool. Okay, now what is the first production car that you were lead designer?
Wow, it would have been at the time, would have been the 300 was the big one, because that car came from a lot of fathers. Success has a lot of fathers, and I get a disproportionate amount of credit. I was promoted to manager of rear drive studios. So I was on the board sketching, competing with what the advanced team was working on, because we were going to go to rear drive. We had done all those front drive vehicles. We had the Intrepid was already out.
Right.
And the next gen, we're going to go rear drive, because we had just joined Mercedes-Benz. They had the E-Class platform. We were going to do something on not exactly the verbatim version, but a modified version. So the sketches were coming out really kind of retro looking, and we were trying to decide between retro and futuristic. And I love the retro one that Bob Hubbock and Mr. Freeman Thomas, his team did, but no one else liked it. So I went to clinic, and it did okay in the clinics. People thought it was humorous, and it kind of fell out of favor. And when I became manager of the rear drive studio, I brought it back, and we kept perfecting it, sketching on it. And I sketched on getting the grille even bigger yet than what the concept was, and trying to convince the engineers to keep the windows really small and get that gangster proportion going.
I'm sure you had to keep going back, like, no, window smaller, grill bigger.
It was, and then we re-clinicked it again. The new version that my team did, we took it to clinic, and it steamrolled everything. I mean, it was, because we had if you think about it, the 300M was out, right? Remember 300M?
My father had one.
Which was a fast windshield, and the idea was to evolve that design as the next, 300C.
Yeah.
So we had the one that came from my team, and that one competing, in the clinic, and people loved the retro look. But it was retro, it was modern and retro at the same time, and I thought that was the way to go, and I kept pushing for it, and it finally took,
And those two words, like you said, modern and retro, you guys could have did a better job with that balance, man. That thing, man, the first time I saw that on the street, they said me and my father were in his 300M when we saw that on the street.
That's my strength today. I mean, I don't even sketch cars anymore. I'm a coach now. I'm a leader, and but I still love editing design. I liken what I do today to what a movie director does.
Perfect.
Like a Spielberg, for example. He doesn't act in the movie, but he makes a movie what it is. He produces it, and that's what I do. And I love to this day. I believe designs are all about proportions, all about, sometimes you got to leave a little bit for the next car. You can't put every idea you've ever had on the first design or second, you know what I mean? So leave a little space, a little air on the paper.
Always wondered that.
Yeah.
Now you confirmed it for me. Like, we're gonna give them enough to be happy. They will never know. But
Yeah, exactly.
like you said, save some for improvement. So that's cool, man. And at this point, I mean, the list goes on. How many things you're active in, and all those things. So we're not gonna talk about that. But after retirement, which I'm sure you don't know when that's gonna happen. I mean, you still look like you're in your 30s, man. So you act like it too. But have you ever had that dream of owning your own car company?
Not necessarily. That's a lot of work, and I know firsthand. I see all those startups out there, and I wish them well. And it's a wonderful thing. You see companies like Rivian, for example, and Lucid, and it's great. And I respect that. I really do. I don't have any desire to be a Fisker, but I would love to do consulting. I did my own project, Hallucination. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I love that car.
My '68 Charger.
I've seen it a couple times.
And I have a lot of friends that have the money to do stuff like that, but don't know where to start. And I'd love to help curate, people that want to do custom builds. That's a passion point for me. I love academia as well. I would love to be the president of a design school someday. Sitting on the board of my old alma mater, I could see the problems, but also the opportunities of a big college.
Yeah, you are a product of that place.
Exactly.
Right.
Affordability is really sensitive to me. I know a lot of kids are blocked out of being what they want to be, any career, right? because of money.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because a lot of scholarships go unclaimed because we don't market them very well, or people don't realize they're there in the first place. And sometimes people that have money to help people don't know how to connect with people that need the money.
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunity there that I would love, in my retirement, I'd love to be passionate about that and talk about, as soon as I got notoriety over the 300 program, I did a lot of public work. People were curious, who's this guy that's leading car design? And I got asked to speak, and I've been at shop schools in Chicago. I've been to inner city schools all over Detroit, and I've actually had my staff go and do the same thing.
Okay.
Talk up who they are, talk up how they got there. Just what we're doing today, but imagine doing that in front of a class of 30 kids and 20 kids. And most of the time they don't pay attention for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Can't wait for it to be over, but after a while they're like, wait a second, that sounds like me, you know what I mean?
Right.
So there's something there that tugs at my heart, knowing that there's a lot of hopefuls. Again, it doesn't have to be design. It could be anything that you're passionate about, especially now. The tools are there, right? You can go reverse engineer almost any career. And I find that passion wins over poverty. if you have the gumption, there's a way.
Hey,
There's
once
gotta be a way.
again, you're proof, man. I mean, man, that's one thing I love about when it comes to your whole Ralph Gilles coming to America life. But it's not necessarily just the automotive design. It is your passion, your hunger that got you to where you are. You didn't have it initially, for lack of words, but your support team pulled it out.
Exactly.
Once you hit it, they pulled it back out.
And it's my duty to tell that story as much as I can, because I know it does. I mean, I've met people that it has touched, and they went on and changed gears with their lives. So it's important to
Yeah. Once I got out of college, started working, like I said, life took over. That's why I never went back. It was still watching you that like, wait, I love automotive. I'll do whatever automotive. And like you said, it didn't have to be design.
Yeah, you're manifesting your passion.
Yeah, now I'm sitting here with, you're my Michael Jordan with all the basketball fans, so I sit here and talk to you.
Thank you for saying that.
With that being said, you said I'm helping out. The reason I'm doing this is so those kids or those parents or adults that still inspired to do what they feel they're built for. Do it. They can hear from miles of people like you. You've been here, you've came here, So this is good. And one last thing, we're wrapping it up here, but one last thing. If you could have given advice to yourself, 16,
Wow.
what would you say to yourself?
Well, I say what my uncle told me, actually. And when he told it to me, I didn't understand it. Like, he used to say, keep your eye on the prize. He would say it all the time, hey, when he'd leave, he'd shake my hand, give me $20, and be, hey, keep your eye on the prize. And I'm like, what does that mean, And now I know what he means, He's like, don't be distracted by the initial temptation. And I use this analogy all the time. It's like you can spend the first 20% of your life having a blast, living it up, to hell with everything, just party, because you think your youngest years are your best years. And
Right. That's how we were all taught.
exactly. Or you go, and then you're like, oh my God, I gotta do something with myself. He used to say, pace yourself, have a little fun, but focus on what you want to be. And he was right. It's like I I have more fun now than I could ever have had as a young person. And you know, it would suck. I was a kid who was inside sketching when everyone else was playing on the streets. You know, my parents would not let me play during the weekdays at all. And I thought they were the meanest, nastiest parents on the planet. Little did I know they were keeping me out of trouble, but also forcing me to find other things to do with my energy, and it did help. Now, there's a better way to do that, I think, than just yelling at kids to go, you know, go read a book. You know, my dad would just say that, and I'm like, I hate you, you know. Well, had he explained to me, which is why I tell kids, he's, you know, the 10%, 20% you invest now is going to take care of the next 80%, right, of your life. So that's what I wish I would have reminded myself, that this is just the beginning. You know, you're not. Again, you don't have freedom until you're maybe 12, 13 years old. You don't have real freedom until you're 18. And you don't have real freedom until you're 25.
Man, I need you to tell that to my son.
You know what I'm saying? So you think you got freedom between 16 and 22, but you're broke. You got, you know, that ain't nothing. You know,
you're budgeting to go.
You got hormones coming out of your pores, and so it's important to have those friendships and those moments, but it isn't everything. So just buckle down, and then you'll have fun for the rest of your life.
A perfect balance.
Yeah.
And even to go on to what you just said, it seems nowadays, I know the world is chaotic, but people need to have more patience and explain of why. I mean, these kids are so smart.
This is probably getting a little personal here, but the other thing I would say
that's what we're here for.
is to surround yourself with good people. That's the advice my dad would give me, and it's better to have 3 great friends than 50 so-so friends, right? Or friends that you think are friends, they're suctioning something from you in that moment, but they're not really there when you need them. So can you find those absolute rocks that can support you in the worst of times? Family, cousins, good friends, girlfriends, whatever. But get that nuclear and take care of those people. You know, make sure you're there for them when they need you, and they'll be your friends the rest of your life. So it's the same thing, investing in your spiritual self, your educational self, your physical self, and your financial self. It's a project, and we're not taught that, right? We're not taught to balance ourselves. We tend to go extreme on one thing. And health is a big deal too. It's like mental health, physical health, all that stuff matters. And I wish I was told to put down some sugar when I was a kid and eat a little better and all those things. You know, we just
I agree.
We just never took the time to educate ourselves on that. And I think our culture, especially the black culture, sometimes our parents are so busy struggling, that's the last priority, right? But as we hopefully get more stable going forward, we can pass on that knowledge and be more careful with how we live our lives, and then we'll prosper.
That is correct. I have 2 teenage sons, a toddler, daughter, and my sons are part of that motivation. Everything you said in a nutshell, you know, give them what I could have used. You know, me talking to you right now, some of the things we talked about today, I'm sure my son is going to say, how did it go? And, you know, we're going to talk about it. So
treat them like adults. They act like adults.
That's it. That's it. I know a lot of people have a problem with that. Like, kids, go play. But no, not all the time.
Exactly.
You can't tell them that. So, okay, and here's my last question for you. With I don't know how much you dealt with, you know, the color of your skin in the industry, if you don't mind speaking on that.
Yeah, of course.
What would you give, what advice would you give them today? I know it's a different world, once again, from when you started, but what advice would you give to ease their pain, to not give up?
I learned, I was the only black designer. There's one other gentleman coming up. He left the company and sadly passed away. So really you had Ed Welber and myself are the only 2 black heads of design. Now there's quite a few coming up, which is great to see. But coming up, I learned that from my folks. They never talked about it, but I could see it in the way they carried themselves. They didn't make it an issue. Now, once in a while they come home under their breath, and my parents would grumble about something that happened at work. Usually, I would say, today they call them microaggressions, I guess. You know?
Never heard that term before.
Yeah, but, you know, people say things they don't realize are offensive, but they are. So I kind of let all that stuff, you know, slide off my back. I give people a lot of benefit of the doubt. I'm assuming they don't know better, right? So, but what I do is one by one. Every opportunity I get, and I sit down with a person that doesn't know my culture, doesn't know anything about it. They're trying. You can tell they're trying really hard to be friendly and everything. Take that moment and show them who you really are. And you know, think about the black culture. We're very multidimensional. You know, I grew up with probably terrible examples of classic television shows that portrayed blacks as such and such. And that isn't us. You know, and it's unfortunate that people that don't assimilate with blacks think that's us. And I think I take great pleasure, and it's one of the comments I cannot stand, but I understand when people say, "Oh, you're not that black." I'm like, "Whoa, what does that mean?"
Really? Wow.
Or "You don't act black." I'm like, "What? What does acting black mean to you?" And I go right there. I get right into it. I said, "Okay, let's talk about this," because that's exactly the problem. And I think that's my issue.
Oh,
and then one by one, you dispel those perceptions with your actions, and that's our responsibility as we assimilate into different cultures. Show that we're on both sides. Every
Right.
white person you meet isn't a racist or isn't whatever. Right? So we all have to take each other one by one and build that tolerance. And before you know it, it's a non-issue. I'm best friends with people maybe 10 years ago would have looked at me sideways. Now we're best friends, right? So you can heal, right? No one is. I don't believe people are set for life. I believe by exposure you can change, you can develop, you can become a more complex person with
Right.
exposure. So I look at it that way. I take everyone at face value. I do not box people. I don't care what color your skin is. It doesn't mean you're who I think you are.
Yes. And see, that's coming from somebody like you, because I know that's when most of these people get outside the box. I was raised in Detroit, and until I went off to college, it was just that, like you said, that one type of person.
Yeah.
That's all I knew, and we're going off to college meeting people.
It's
different
unbelievable.
places. Yeah, you can't explain it. You just have to go through it.
Even in my
Change
family reunions, I mean, we have our diasporas all over. Haitians ended up all over America, and we meet at family reunions, and everyone's story is different. Right? And every other person, one of my cousins married outside the race, so they also went into a different, some are Jewish, some are,
Oh, okay.
And when you mix it all together, you're like, this is a beautiful world.
Wow. And everybody gets together.
It works. We're all individuals, we're all human
correct.
beings that try to live a great life.
That is correct.
So,
wow.
but yeah, so that's how I deal with it. I'm proud to be black. I'm proud to be Haitian, and I just went to Ghana. With my brother.
With your brother? I saw your pictures on Instagram.
We talk about a humbling experience. Really understanding literally where we all came from. All of us went through that port, right? Through 3 different the slave trade homes. Before they processed them, and it was the most emotional thing I've ever done.
That's what you guys were there
Yeah,
for.
yeah. We wanted to well, other things too, but that was the main thing. So yeah, when you look at it in that way, it's like we that wasn't that long ago, right? So
Yeah.
But you have to understand that, but then still progress and forgive and
That is true.
just understand.
I love history. That's one of my little hobbies on the side. I'm a documentary guy. I don't watch movies,
Oh, you
TV
gotta
shows.
go there.
I'm documentaries all the time. So
you gotta go to Cape Coast in Ghana.
Yeah.
It's a trip, absolute pilgrimage.
Will do. Well, thank you for your time once again, guys. The man himself, the living legend. I love it, man. The living legend. You're just such an inspiration, man. It's so many factors, and I actually talked to Ed Wilburn about that once, and I'm going to get him on the show too.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you for coming. Thanks for the conversation that you've given all these people, and I would love to know in the future, maybe somebody that's watching is going to approach you, man, and hey, I saw you, hopefully. But thank you guys for tuning in. We have more episodes coming behind this, and we want to get Ralph on his way. We know he's a busy guy, but we will see you guys next time.